Hi everyone, Linda and I are back to talk about what's going on in the world,
Oh boy, do we
especially
have stuff to
y-
say.
yeah yesterday's debacle, with Zelensky and the whole thing in the White House
And
and all
I,
the
I
fallout.
begged him to take a look at the chart of Zelensky and Trump and JD Vance.
Yeah, no, the Zelensky, you can see in there both the tremendous tension he's under. You always see Saturn somewhere, and Saturn is right at the top of the chart, but it's making a square. And this is like what happens to a lot of people when they encounter trouble in their public life, right? So that's one thing. And you also
When's his
see
birthday? When is Zelensky's birthday?
Zelensky is
Or what sign is he?
he's an Aquarius. He
Okay.
is March, sorry, January 25th, 1978, 2 p.m. in Krivosh Roj, Ukraine. And so you can see the problem, but it's not all bad, and which is why you're seeing Europe really support him. And uh, probably the biggest reason there is Jupiter. Jupiter is always the planet that will help you out, and he's
Right.
Gemini rising with Jupiter and Gemini. You have Jupiter and Gemini too, by the way. You
I
both,
do?
yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
Jupiter and Gemini. So Jupiter is in that sign this year, at least until the summer. So until the summer, it's pretty much guaranteed he's going to get, plenty of support. Beyond that, the way I'm looking at it is I want to see what happens in the next 2, 3 months, because after that, the period with Jupiter in Cancer, which is from the summer, like June 2025 till next summer, June 2026, that's not as helpful. However, you can take comfort in the fact that it's not nearly as helpful to Trump either. I mean, Trump is right
Okay.
now, circulating with Jupiter in his sign, right? So that's what brought him into the presidency. Of course, the problem for Trump is that he's got a massive amount of Saturn this month, and that's pretty threatening. And like I was telling you we were talking, the least of your problems would be if your numbers would go down, because they're almost certainly going to. The approval ratings are dropping for good reason.
Right.
At age 78, in the way he's looking, the least of your problems with a planet transiting through, well, more than one. There are two in there, Saturn and Neptune. But the Saturn alone is extremely dangerous, right? So, we'll see, right? We'll see what
Okay.
happens. That's one of his
But
famous statements.
he's holding steady. Zelensky is for now.
Oh, Zelensky, yeah. Zelensky, you can see the overall pattern is more complicated than it's been. I'm studying the chart to see if I can pin down a little more. The key in a lot of ways is that you can see why he has great skill in attracting help from other people. Resort, like in a way what Trump does. Trump is this is the eighth sign in astrology, right? The eighth sign is where other people's money is there, right? But it's also the house of death and the house of taxes. It has multiple meanings, right? So I'm looking at the fact that he has been very successful so far, but now he's run into a brick wall. And part of the reason is that Saturn is connected to that house. And so where the
Okay.
Saturn is aligned, it's turned on him. But by the
The
way,
only country that didn't come back, I don't think China said anything.
no, but we could see this
But
coming.
Hungary was the only country that didn't say we support you.
Yeah, no. Well, again, like a lot of this was known. This was known. I mean, in a way, you could say yesterday was really surprising. We knew it was coming. Trump made many statements. I mean, come on, he was saying how brilliant he was when he invaded. He said that. You don't take it back. That's an obvious thing. So we knew this
And
was
the other
coming.
thing you mentioned before we started taping about the whole getting rid of your nuclears. The United States guaranteed them.
Yeah, back. I mean, this is the thing. This is the argument that Putin would say. Well, they had no right to do that. blah 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 because the Soviet Union broke up. They didn't want to be with you guys for good reason. You can go back probably more than 100 years. Ukraine
Oh, yeah.
always felt uncomfortable. So when the Soviet Union fell apart, the uh, the nukes, many of the nukes were in Ukraine, and of course Ukraine, when they were becoming independent, they wanted guarantees that they wouldn't be invaded, and they were not successful in getting solid guarantees, obviously, because they signed, the U.S. signed the paper, saying, yeah, your security is guaranteed, which is what Zelensky could have brought up yesterday, but, he didn't. I mean, he was ambushed. And
He couldn't even say two words.
no. And I was saying to you how the key there, these cowards, right? What they do is they know he's not able to defend himself in the English language. He can defend himself in Ukrainian, I bet you, right?
Oh, yeah.
Probably immediately. But in English, he's not up to their standard. Notice that Trump immediately got a pushback from Macron. And Macron is French, but he has enough English that he said, no, that's not what happened. We paid 60%, you paid 40%. And
Right.
it wasn't 350 billion, it was 160 billion. So and Trump just listened, right? So you're never going to see JD and Trump confront an English speaking, like a Tony Blair type. That's extremely dangerous because they'll tell you what the scoop really is, right? So
Right.
it's just the cowardice, but they're running over him. They're bullies, basically. That's the bottom line.
And he didn't, you just don't have the cards. You don't have the cards. Zelensky said,
I know. I mean,
I'm interested in playing cards.
and the response to that is, we're not talking about a poker game here. We're talking about the fact that people are being killed in my country. Like, okay, so basically, if the U.S. had lost Alabama, Florida, and North Carolina, you're saying we should just like walk away and let those cities become some other countries, right? Like that's what Putin wants. He wants to take over
Yeah.
Russian cities. I mean, Ukrainian cities, right? In addition to Crimea. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but
So
such is life.
apparently there's billions of dollars that Europe is holding on to that belongs to Russia. It's frozen. And now they're talking about, okay, US doesn't want to play. Let's give all this Russian money to Ukraine.
Yeah, I mean, this is, by the way, probably, I mean, a bit of a positive thing is that Europe does have to get more serious about their own defense, their own independence, because you obviously can't count on the U.S. if the
No.
U.S. is going to elect vermin like this. I mean, I'm sorry. This man, is a sleazebag. That's what he is. He's a cheater. He's a liar. He's a scoundrel. He's not doing it for the country. And the amazing thing is that all these people in our country, this is the most disappointing thing, that they think that he's doing it for them. He's not.
Right.
No, not at all.
And he pardons people like the Tate brothers. He pardons people like Pete Rose. He did Pete Rose. People with criminal history is the ones he likes.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of it is that he himself is a criminal, so he wants to normalize criminality. If everyone is a criminal, then I'm not a criminal. That's Trump's logic, right?
Yeah.
And it's what we're in, And
Did you take a look at, well, give us what your hit was on Trump coming up here.
Trump is just, like I was telling you, with astrology, it's a system of odds, meaning when you see heavy action somewhere, you look at the entire picture. So there's a very different thing. If someone says to you, I have, a disease, or they're a certain age, or, something that puts them in a certain place, you read it differently than if the same thing is happening at age 15 or something. And,
Right.
Because
Right.
then it manifests in a different way, because that's how the chart is read, is that, for example, the eighth sign where this thing is happening to Trump, the same place where he is able to gather money from other people, because that's the place of banking and money and, all of that. He's an expert at that, no question, until it shows up doing the other thing, right? And it always does, inevitably. No one escapes. Probably people saw, he was 95, but still, Gene Hackman, right? Gene Hackman, he was very healthy for many, many years until he wasn't, And you can
Right.
see in the chart something happening where? To that house. Immediately you look, there's a movement in there. pointing
Okay,
to a
so you
planet.
took a look-see at him too? Because
Yeah,
I
I look
heard
at-
he was in the beginning stages of Alzheimer's. Did you hear that?
Yeah, that I didn't hear. I just looked at, what I looked at is late February. It turned out now that they said he probably passed away in mid-February by looking at
Okay.
and so mid-February, you see the angles in the chart. This is how astrologers come up with meanings over centuries and thousands of years. They just observe and they go, look, that planet seems to be in that spot or
Right.
makes a certain angle. But you can't say definitively, this is going to happen 100%.
Right.
You just say
Exactly.
the odds go up. So this is why you look at a person like Trump, I got to see what happens here in the next 5 weeks because, I'm
Well,
like a
everybody,
spectator.
all the other astrologers, all say that March is very tough for him.
It is 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So, what about JD Vance? What sign is he?
I think he's the same sign. He's such a repulsive person. I haven't even looked at him in a while. I'm pretty sure he's Gemini too, though. This is the thing. It's the era where the let's call them the bad Geminis, because another thing, people will say, "Oh, I'm the same sign." This puts me in a bad light. No, I mean there are 12 signs,
I've
and
met a lot of people the same birthday as Trump who are wonderful people.
yeah, it doesn't work like that. I mean, it's no, actually, no. Vance is no, he's not a Gemini, or at least I think. Let's see, I think he's a Leo.
Is he a
Yeah,
Leo?
he's a Leo.
Leos can
Uh,
lie while they're breathing. You think Geminis can lie?
Leo, yeah,
There's good
Leo.
Leos and then there's underhanded Leos.
Yeah,
I
well,
guess all.
Leo is the sign of the sun, so you get either shine. For example, peak Leo would be shining spiritual energy, and you pass on to people a natural confidence that is really nice, really welcome. But then it descends, and at the bottom end, it's the most egotistical, arrogant, because the sun, when it goes to your head, it gives you a big ego, right? So you often see this even more clearly with Leo rising, which is what. But Vance is Leo with Leo rising, so there's a
Oh
lot
my
of arrogance
God.
there, and Trump is Leo rising, right? And Giuliani, you see this pattern where the energy of it goes to the person's head, but it doesn't mean every single Leo rising is bad. It just means that
Yeah.
person is expressing it in that way, and then you have to go to genetics, his father, whatever. I don't know. It gets complicated because, uh,
But
depends.
that it felt like they do you think this was a planned hit? It felt like it was a hit.
Oh,
Like
for
they
sure.
planned this.
Yeah, like probably it was probably as much as saying Trump probably told Vance, "You started, and then I'll join in." It's hard to
Right.
believe that. It's hard to believe that. I mean, try to
But
convince me.
never in the history of the United States has a vice president jumped in like that.
No, no, it was. It's shameful. It's shameful, and that's the bottom line. It's a horrible way. This thing is that they were saying how Trump has behaved like this at times during his first term. Like apparently the Japanese prime minister who died, I think his name was Shinto Abe or something like that. He died, and he had said that he would do these things, but in private among them, among the different leaders. But when you do it in public, you're doing a much more humiliating thing, and you risk a bigger response too, because you can say, "Oh, this makes me look really tough." Yeah, but now all the countries in Europe go, "Oh, I see. Okay, I see what this guy's doing. We got to take strong measures, to
Yeah.
to respond." Right?
I know everybody, even his red hats are starting to hate him. So,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the thing is, the one big transit that Zelensky has coming, and again, I don't know with this one because I need more visibility to see how this thing unfolds. He's an Aquarius in the early range, so he's got Pluto coming in. It is dangerous because Pluto can kill you, right? But Zelensky's not even 50 yet, right?
he
So
may be murdered.
he could be. But the thing about Pluto is that in most cases, in at a younger age, if you're in your 80s and you get Pluto conjunct the Sun, you better be healthy because it's a risky planet. It could transition you. And that's what happened to Colin Powell, right? Colin Powell in his 80s. But Colin Powell had a Pluto transit in his 40s that transitioned him from the military into Secretary of State because it's a big change, right? So Zelensky, it's a very empowering type of energy, right? So
Right.
Zelensky in parts of 26, 27, Pluto's on the sun. yes, it could be bad. Like I'm not denying that, but it could also be huge empowerment. That where things go in a totally different way. And here's where you look at this pattern, and I've always thought that the Russian thing is not in a good place. I know that Putin, just by looking at the fact that Putin is multiple planets in Libra and that Saturn and Neptune are going into Aries, that's the opposite side. That's not good. That's the kind of thing that pushes back, sets you back, right? Right now, that doesn't look like it's going to happen. Maybe because he's a Libra, Jupiter's in Gemini, that helps Libra, but Jupiter will get out of Gemini. The situation will shift, right? What drives people nuts is they're saying, well, it should have happened already. Maybe, but maybe we just have to wait long
Well,
enough for it to.
it's getting where he doesn't have the materials, the men, and of course they won't tell us about it. But inside Russians, that if you catch them on certain shows, there's a one guy that I really like that talks about the situation in Russia, and they are struggling. They are struggling. These poor people, food and everything. And the economy sucks, and they're building equipment, but they're building half-ass equipment
Yeah,
because
no,
they
it's
don't
true.
have the money. So maybe Putin was looking forward to a little bit of a ceasefire, a little bit of a break, so he could build up. Because let me tell you something. I've been saying this till I'm blue in the face. I would no sooner sign an agreement with Trump and Putin and the man in the moon.
Oh, I mean, are you
They
kidding?
would not stick by their word at
Of
all.
course, of course, of course. I mean,
And that's all Zelensky was saying. How can you guarantee us that Putin will stick with the word? And that they got mad at him. You need to say thank you. What?
yeah, which again, he couldn't even reply to say, what, you didn't see me in Congress say thank you 7 different times. Okay,
Right.
here we go, eighth time. Thank you very much. I deeply appreciate all you've done for me, and I'm telling you that we're in the middle of a war here. This is not a
Well,
joke. This is not a game of cards. Where
well, he
people are
was
being
just
shot at.
asking for some assurance. Oh, this guy he hates Putin. Yeah, so everybody hates Putin. He killed one of our best persons in the world, Navalny. I mean, this guy's a murderer. He's not a good man at all. One of the psychic readers, she told a story. She had a friend who was a I'm not going to say her name, but she had a friend who was a uh, journalist in Russia, and apparently she said something that wasn't too flattering about Putin. And he asked for her to come to his office. It was on his birthday. Please have her come to my office. Uh, and she did. She was confused, but she showed up at his office and he just shot her, killed her right there. A young woman, because he didn't like. You don't think Trump wouldn't do that too? He'd do it if he could get away with it.
Yeah, I don't. You know, I've always had zero faith in this guy. He's a con man. If you can't, this is the part for me. It's the most enraging part of this. But this guy, what is his fame? He's not a good businessman. He played a
Oh,
businessman for 14 years on TV, and he's never done anything correctly in business ever. All he does is bankrupt things. And yet there are people lying to their face, and there are people saying he's the only one that tells the truth. He's being sent by Jesus here to save us all. And when I say people, I mean millions of people. That's the most disappointing thing about this whole thing.
that's the hard. Even Hitler had more of an ability, but Hitler was a con man like Putin. I
Well,
mean, yeah, like Putin and Trump.
in a
They're
way
all
they all
con.
are. In a way they all are. But Trump, the part that is most frustrating is that they would look to him and believe that he's looking out for them. That's now you're starting to see all these videos with MAGA people. Oh, I thought
Yeah,
you were going to
people
take.
saying I worked for the state for 16 years and I lost my job. He wasn't supposed to hurt us.
Yeah, but how do you do the purge without taking down your own people? How does that work? You know, I mean, maybe you can try in different ways, but it's very complicated. If you start
Yeah.
firing people or taking away jobs from different places, whatever, you're going to start do sweeps of your own people. And how do you also control inflation if you're doing things that increase inflation? Well, your people are going to have to pay. How does this work if you remove Medicaid from people that are on your team? They're going to have to, figure out how to pay for
Right.
that.
And they're going to end up, and it's going to be the red states that really suffer. And they're going to end up closing hospitals because they're just not going to be able to afford to stay open. It's tragic. I'm going to tell you. But when you look at the chart of the United States, there's a lot of judges now stepping into this, putting in saying no, don't go any further. Do you think that'll help based on the chart of the United States? You think the United States, we're going through some growing pains. Will we be able to fight this with justice, or are we done ducks sitting on the water?
My feeling is yes, but it's a qualified yes because you see, this is another thing that you see this guy do. He's very clever at this. He spent his entire life learning how to manipulate the legal system. So he knows that when you do something illegal, it goes to court because someone challenges it. But if you have more money than the other person, you can stall, you can basically bankrupt them. In the current game he's playing, the judges are saying, no, you can't do that, and they still keep doing it. Now you have to go to court again. I mean, it takes a while, right, to stop. So then it has to go all the way to the Supreme Court. There's no guarantee how they'll rule. In other words, you can really stall and get a lot done, even though, yes, the judges, you can see, they're pushing back.
Oh, they're going to try to get rid of the judges too. It's not going to work.
Well, what do you see?
It's not going to work. They're not going to be able to get rid. It goes to higher courts, and even the Supreme Court wouldn't tell their own judges, "You're out of here because you didn't vote in his favor."
Yeah. I mean, the hard part to all this is that my feeling is, when all is said and done, people have to, whoever's watching this, just start by assuming that at minimum, the GOP is going to be in power for 4 years. If you think that that's going to be changed, maybe. I mean, great.
Well, we could get a crystal blue midterms.
Well, but it's still the presidency, right? Okay. So my point being, no, of course, that absolutely, that would be the next step. The next step is 2026, but you're still looking at, like 2016, they lost the House in 2018. So that's the same idea, right? So that helped a lot because that's when he got impeached and all that. But the main point is you have to figure out, how are you going to get through this without
if we
your mind?
turn crystal blue for the midterms, he can just be a lame duck president.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Nothing will go through.
Yeah, the next step is definitely 2026. But even ahead of that, I mean, how are you going to get through 2025? I mean, look what we're in. Look what
It's
we just
terrible
saw.
right now.
There's got to be something in you that protects your personal harmony, whatever that is.
Well, states will have to take care of themselves. Like California will probably have some sort of plan on what to do. But the states that have no money, like Alabama and Arkansas and stuff, it's there. And you know what? I hate to see people suffer, but in this suffering, they'll say, get this SOB out of here. He could be impeached. He could really be impeached, and it goes through this time. Because if enough of the Republicans get voted out, and we stand strong and say, no, you're out of here. I think J.D. Vance would go in, but he'll be a nothing burger. But I wanted to look at Justice Roberts. I want to look at SCOTUS real quick. What's the outcome on Monday or Tuesday when they come back with what they put a stop because apparently they said that he didn't have the right, Trump didn't have the right to do something. Do you remember what that was about?
I don't remember.
To get rid of somebody in office.
Who exactly was he getting rid of? I can't remember what that was.
I can't remember who it was, but the guy's still there. And Trump's going to the Supreme Court, emergency Supreme Court. The thing is, he thinks the Supreme Court's really going to help him. They may on a couple of things, but they're not going to do it on all things.
No, not on all things. But, on that one, Monday, I wonder what they would announce that in the morning, right?
Yeah, apparently they wanted to hear all the briefings Friday.
And
I
so,
think it's going to be okay. Look at this. Justice works in our favor. It's a success story. And I think Amy's going to go crossover, and I wouldn't doubt it because I've heard, and it might just be hearsay, that Justice Roberts is tired of Trump degrading judges. He doesn't like that kind of talk.
and then,
But of course, you'll have the usual. You'll have the usual say, "Oh no, he's the president. He can do what he wants."
yeah, yeah, no, um, yeah, I don't know that one. On Monday, I mean, because the
But
thing
this is
is,
huge. This is huge, by the way. This is huge. If the Supreme Court actually says, "Nah, you need to follow the law," just like him thinking he's going to take over the post office, that's not going to happen. It's in the Constitution.
so tell me again, how does that work? This person was fired, and
And
they
he challenged it, and the judge said, "Yeah, he's not going anywhere." And then Trump challenged it with the Supreme Court because all the other courts said, "No, you can't do that." So now he threw it to Roberts, and Roberts put it on a hold.
and
Hey,
then,
listen, they worked real fast on that one, but when Jack Smith was asking, "Does he have immunity?" they sat on it for months.
well, let me put it to you this way: he Trump is in a zone now until I'm going to say about 5 weeks, and he's in the zone now already, where there are going to be lots of no's, lots of, uh, you know, no,
Pushback.
can't do that, pushback. The only thing is, I hope that one is true. Yeah, I hope it. Yeah, it
If
would
it,
help.
if they say no, well, listen, he went to the Supreme Court 64 times
Mhm.
that his presidency was stolen. And they all said, every time they said no. The Supreme Court said no. And they begged him. There was one judge that liked Trump. He said, "Give me something, give me some proof." And he couldn't come up with anything. Just like they're asking about this Elon Musk Doge or whatever. Well, Elon doesn't technically work for them, but they're saying, "Where do you get this? Where's this information? Where are you?"
Well,
Nobody can answer.
okay, let me just check on something though. Are you saying, because I've lost track of what happened with this thing, is it because he's being fired inappropriately and that he has to be fired in a different way? By who? By Congress or by who?
I think it's by Congress.
Well, whatever it is, like my feeling is, if it's the Supreme Court would probably stand with the rules. My
Yeah.
guess is because if they don't stand with the rules, then they give him a power that he doesn't currently have. So, yeah, but the question is, what does he do with it, right?
Oh, he might go back to Congress and make them fire this guy, but still,
Yeah,
they stopped him from doing it the wrong way. So, what's Elon Musk look like?
Musk, thing with him is that he's gone through the only thing that's happened to him in the Saturn period, which is not nearly as uh, difficult as Trump's, but he's been in Saturn for a while, and people's perception of him has gone way, way down, and now he's very unpopular.
He's
But
got a 23% likability.
he does, but he does, with Musk, I've always thought from looking at his chart that unless he gets removed like any day, and I don't see that happening. I mean, he seems to have Trump in a headlock, and it's probably because they have
Money.
a money thing. His chart, it declines later in the year and into next year. That's when things get really difficult for him. But in the summer, Jupiter is very well placed, right? So
This summer,
yeah, this summer, yeah, Jupiter's in Cancer. He's a Cancer. He's Cancer rising. You can go back to their astrology books back in the 70s where I remember Rob Hand talking about how Nixon was being held up by Jupiter, like, sustained for a while until everything just fell apart when the Jupiter moved because basically Saturn changed Saturn is the one that brings you to account, right? And as an example, where Zelensky is today with his career problem, because think of it as that's his world position. And I think he's still going to make it work pretty well because of Jupiter, right? But that's what Musk faces next year when we, the Saturn will reach that high point. Another person that has that happen to him next year is Tucker Carlson as well, in the top of the chart, which is usually.
You don't hear about Tucker Carlson anymore.
No, he's been in the background more, for a while. But in that way, people that violate the social responsibility of Saturn, the Saturn finds them in due time, because that's how that planet works, and it can do it in a variety of ways, through the thing falling apart, through conditions changing, through a health breakdown, through all three at the same time, whatever, it's difficult, right? So
I really feel that some innocents will be hurt. Like it could be a protester, or it could be a Congress or senator that's, like a independent or Democrat. Someone's going to get hurt. I don't know when this is going to happen, but I see people on fire. Like, you know what? You're going to pay for this.
well, the other thing too that we didn't mention yet in the astrology is that we are about to enter very soon. The Venus goes retrograde for about 40 plus days. And Venus retrograde, especially when you give it a reason, because sometimes you get Venus retrograde cycles where the kind of the situation is not this intense. This Venus retrograde to me feels like the one in 2020 when George Floyd caused people to hit the streets and got really mad, right? And right
That was
now,
a huge uproar.
like the whole period, it's coincident. The Venus retrograde period is coincident with the Saturn pressure on Trump. So I think all kinds of things are going to happen in terms of pushback, where people are angry, and I think you're going to see more and more town halls, and
Yes.
yeah, more and more problems.
Oh, when these poor people start losing their health care, and
Yeah, well,
I don't know. I'm just hoping Robert Kennedy doesn't say you can be inoculated. He can't be doing that. He has to allow people, if you want to get inoculated, fine. If you don't want it to either, that's fine. He can't be saying, oh no, measles is no big deal. He's got to let people have that option.
I think with him, he's one that, with what I see in that chart, I think his problems come later. I don't think they come right away. He's not as fast. So now I don't know why. Probably because he might have enough, common sense to realize what you just said. If he thinks, if I do such and such, and then we get a measles outbreak or whatever, then it'll rebound to me. I don't know. I don't know what the reason is.
He doesn't have common sense. He's got a worm in his brain.
Yeah, and plus another thing too is that some of the things he's talking about, they do take a while to cause problems. Like if you start running experiments, like I heard about this, how people can disagree, but apparently fluoride, in whatever level they're using, helps people to prevent tooth decay. And there was a place where they took it away and people started getting rotten teeth. I mean, like what you would expect, right? So
Right.
This is the thing, that some of the things he might try could take a while. But again, I think my advice to everyone is look out for yourself. Like in a way, it's the last words of the Buddha were, be a lamp unto yourself. Don't just take my word for it. If you want to know if this is true, figure it out. Don't take messages.
I see California working together. I see California, and I see Washington and all kinds of other states, New York, grouping and working together.
Yeah, which is usually what this type of thing, leads people into. And even with all that, expect some tension, for sure, because you know what these people are like, I mean, and now we've got a whole
the governor
crew
of Maine, who, by the way, is going to run for Susan Collins' spot. She said, well, if he's not going to give federal money towards us, what we're going to do is hold back on any federal payments to the government. We'll use it for our state. And good for her.
I don't know how that's done, though. I'm trying to figure out how
I
they
don't
do
know
that.
either, but she said they'll figure it, because Governor Newsom was talking about it too. Oh, you don't want to help us out with are fires, but you gonna want to put conditions, but everybody else is carte blanche, anybody that voted for you. Remember how terrible that Jared Kushner was? They gave the New York governor broken machines and it was terrible. And they were laughing the whole time they did it while people were being put in ice trucks.
Oh yeah, there's no question. I mean, the hardest thing to accept, the most dispiriting, borderline depressing, is when you see so many people with so little character, so little human empathy. I
Care
mean,
less.
just like zero sense of decency. I mean, you're kind of waiting for the message, like how in the 50s when they finally looked at McCarthy and said, "Have you no decency at all? Like, is that what you're
Yeah.
like?" Because that's what these people are like. And
He could care less. He's in there now. He could care less what they think.
yeah, no, and the lies. I mean, they're constant. Now, that's another thing, though. The lies. This is the problem with big cycles. Neptune went into Pisces in 2011, and that's when I started to notice. The first person I saw do this, where I thought, really, man? Ted Cruz. He was shutting down the government and going on TV saying, "No, I didn't do it. The Democrats did it." But I remember thinking, no, they didn't do anything. You shut down the government. That's what happened. And it kept accelerating. And it's been years and years of this. Truth is no longer truth. But Neptune gets out of Pisces this year a lot already, and next year fully. And then it'll be in Aries for 13 years. And it's curious that that's what happened in the Civil War, because in the Civil War, the pre-Civil War period up to 1861, Neptune was in Pisces. Then the war was fought during these degrees, which is why we're in a state of war in a sense. At the moment
Yeah.
the country is very unhappy. You've got people that are sore losers, sore winners. No one is happy.
Yeah.
But, it'll move forward. It'll go to other cycles. And that whole thing around truth can change because it's become, you can just say anything, including, I mean, look at how, isn't it nuts to think that Trump said on, I think he put it on that Truth Social. He put somewhere he called Zelensky a dictator. Then he said, "No, I didn't say that. I don't remember
He
saying
said,
that."
I can't believe I would have said that.
Yeah, so it's like, who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? That's the era that we're in. It's like that. But again, things change. I think if I were to say, okay, what's the bottom line? People have talked a lot about Pluto and Aquarius. Okay, here's what I'll tell you to do. Just in fact, here's where AI is fun, right? Find an AI engine, like even ChatGPT, free ChatGPT. You don't have to buy it. You can just go to the free and put in there, ask it to tell you what was happening in history during the last 1,000 years when Pluto was in Aquarius. Just put that in there, right?
Oh, okay.
Or put the last 2,000 years and notice the theme. You'll see a theme of social rebellion against the oligarchs, against the people. That's when the French Revolution happened. In fact, the American experiment was right around when Pluto was in Aquarius, where it's returning to now. Those were years when it was bumpy, though, because it's not a direct thing. It's not like goes in Aquarius, everything changes. But the pull is toward the people, toward the collective, not toward dictators, right? Dictators want the power, but they won't get it, right? It's just that.
Did Rome fall in a time like that too?
Sorry, say that again.
Did Rome fall in a time like
Okay,
that?
that's a good question. I'd have to look that up. I
I'll
know that
look it up, yeah.
I looked at all these periods going back long time, and it's pretty clear.
Oh, I'm going to look at that. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, no. So that's the thing. But the problem with that, though, is that, doesn't give you a total guarantee, and that Pluto is in Aquarius from now until 2042, 2043. So someone could say, well, how do you know that it doesn't take 10 years for this to be resolved? I don't, but I suspect sooner, even if it's a little bumpy, right?
Right. Well, he's causing the rest of these countries on Earth to really. America used to be land of the free, and now it's a laughing stock.
Yeah, it's causing realignments, and yeah, it's causing things to that's the thing, right? I mean, think about that too. If you say this is just America, it's obviously not. It's a world problem. This is where you see a period of time when the world is readjusting. There's been a lot of uh, immigration due to climate change, due to wars. Countries are having trouble with their own population. There are lots of back and forth in governments. Britain, France, everywhere,
Yeah.
Germany, Israel. You see a lot of division, but that's what happens in cycles. When the world realigns, things get uncomfortable for a while. They were uncomfortable in the 1940s, and then of course the next thing people will say, "Well, wait a second. Yeah, they were. That's when we had a world war." Yeah, it's dangerous. Let's hope it doesn't go that far.
Yeah.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely, because then you will get a realignment, but it won't be any fun at all, obviously, right?
So my last question, and then I gotta go, is uh, the Pope. I definitely see him catching the ride to heaven. And as you know, he got better, thank goodness, but he's now turned worse again. And when I
It's
was looking at him, I heard his voice say, "I'll leave in the Ides of March."
Well, here's the thing with the Pope. Uh, I did that chart 2 classes ago, and I said, I don't like this.
It shows
This look
them.
okay. I shouldn't be laughing, but I mean, he's I think he's late 80s, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
84
so
or something.
are you sure that it's not? I could swear. Hold on a second. I think I have
Just
his
look
chart
real
here.
quick. I don't have my phone with me.
He is. No, no. You see, this is it. Okay, so he is. Yeah. Okay, so he is at a point in the life cycle, the third Saturn return, back to Saturn again,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, but the problem for him is that the third Saturn return, as well as being the third return, is a direct hit on his health house.
Yeah.
And you see, this is where the astrology is really spooky. You see a house where you have a lot of vulnerability is the lung area, and he reports some really bad bronchitis. He's having problems breathing, right? So, but that Saturn is not done. In fact, right now it's even worse than it was.
Yeah, he
So
got
yeah,
better. Now he's getting bad again.
yeah. So, and a
And he
lot of
only has
people,
one lung.
yeah, and it's not Saturn. The third Saturn return is difficult. That age, it happens at age 88 to 89. A lot of people, that's when they have no more energy. And you know who, someone just passed away at that age on that return is the guy that played Bobby Fischer in the 70s, Boris Spassky. He was a chess champion in
Yeah,
Russia.
yeah.
He just died. And, you could almost say natural causes. I mean, at that age, Saturn, is not the planet you want to visit from, let's just say. I mean, you can get through that. Some people do. But,
Right,
and the popes, you see the Saturn, you see a couple of other things. And
right.
it's so graphic.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
not based on the chart, it doesn't look that great.
No,
But
it
it's
does not.
not, I believe in life after death, so I know where he's going. And the poor guy, his face is real blown up. So you can tell they probably got him a lot of prednisone and stuff, steroids. But he's a good, I think as far as the Pope's concerned, I think he was a good Pope. And I think he already knows who's going to take his place. And I think that he's comfortable knowing who he thinks he should take because he can't choose. But I just feel like he'll be very beloved. I think he left a good impression, and I think he deserves the break.
Yeah, my hope is that, and I don't know if the church will do what so many governments are doing. They're turning more to the right. I'm hoping that they won't turn to the right because that would be bad for the church and for the world. You need a pope that,
Well, the thing is,
you
this
know,
church can't afford to do very much because they may be mighty, but they're not as mighty as they used to be.
no, no, and they'll lose ground if
They'll
they
lose
align with
ground big time.
they'll lose
Yeah.
ground, which is they can't afford to do. One final thing, by the way,
But
this is an entertainment note, but I saw this series that is not only well put together, but is very appropriate for what we're living through. It's called Zero Day. It stars
with uh,
with
Robert De
Robert
Niro.
De Niro. It's
I'm watching it now.
it's
I'm on
really
it.
really good because and by the way, one of the reasons it's good is it catches you by surprise more than once, where you go, "Wow, I didn't think of that." Like
Yeah,
you suddenly think it was going one way and it was going in a totally different direction.
yeah.
So yeah,
I'm watching. The other series I watched that I really enjoyed was Shogun.
Okay, that I haven't seen. So,
Shogun. It was very good.
yeah.
So anyway, okay.
All right, we'll stop there.
All right.
Bye for now, everyone.